Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions. Thank you for our time together. Please don't forget tonight is Revival Night at Main Campus. We're looking forward to you being there with us. But right now, let's go back to the book of 2 Chronicles chapter 24, a story about changing influence. It's a challenge that each one of us faces in our life. In chapter 24, verse 1, Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada chose 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Now, look down to verse 17. After the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of the Lord, the God of their fathers, and worshipped Ashereth poles and idols. Because of their guilt, God's anger came upon Judah and Jerusalem, although the Lord sent prophets to bring the people back to him, and though they testified against them, they would not listen. Then the Spirit of God came on Zechariah, son of Jehoiada, the priest. He stood before the people and said, "This is what the God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's command? You will not prosper because you have forsaken the Lord. He has forsaken you." But they plotted against him, and by order of the king. By order of who? The king, King Joash, the man who was raised by Jehoiada the priest. By order of the king, they stoned Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada. They stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. King Joash did not remember the kindness Zechariah's father, Jehoiada, had shown him, but killed his son, who said as he lay dying, "May the Lord see this and call you to account." My goodness, talk about a man who changed. A man who had been raised from the time he was 7 years old by Jehoiada. A man who did right, and a man who was blessed of God because he had been influenced to live right. But as soon as Jehoiada died, other people stepped in as his primary sources of influence, and he went so bad, he even ordered the stoning of his mentors, of his spiritual father's son, Zechariah, to death in the temple courts. Now that's a complete change of heart brought about by a change of influence. Now there's a couple of things I want you to see here. Number one, in times of the death of a spiritual father, a spiritual mother, at the time of death of a Lolo or a Lola or a mom or a dad that has been very influential in leading your life, it's very important who you begin to look to for influence in your life. Now again, at times of death of a spiritual father, spiritual mother, a mom or dad, a grandparent or a grandfather or grandmother, people that have influenced you, when they die, you need to immediately find good sources of influence in your life. Now that gets harder as you get older, I understand. But you need to be careful about this, because there will be other people who will seek to enter into your life, and they will influence you in a completely different direction than has brought you success in life. The second thing I want you to see, be careful the influences that you're following. When new people enter into your life and they begin to direct your life in a completely different way than you've been going, and they say that this is progress and this is what needs to be done, you need to be very careful about that. You are successful because of a lifestyle that you have lived before God. Be very careful with people who want to influence you to change that lifestyle. Me, I like to be around people that love to read the Bible. Pastor Claude down in Australia, I was just talking to him a few minutes ago. I love talking to him because it's always, I was just praying about this, and I was just reading this, I'm working on my sermon for this. He's full of the Word and he's full of prayer. As you get older, you don't have spiritual fathers and mothers much, but you can have good spiritual friends. I challenge you all, be careful of the influences in your life. Make sure that you have influences that take you closer to God and not farther away from God.